Hello, today I will be making a short video about this Canon IXUS 70 camera, which came out in, I guess, the heyday of compact cameras, 2007. So just after the time actually that Fuji had released its sort of F20, the little compact with the super CCD, which I've actually talked about in another video, which you might want to have a look at. Now I've got the box here. This camera was bought by myself, and I used it probably for the first sort of year or two, and then my wife kind of took over the ownership of the camera because of its size, and it's very consistent in giving decent snaps basically. So she sort of took the camera on and used it for a few more years. So the camera itself hasn't been used recently, but I have got some images that I took from a few years ago, which I will append to the end of this video. So when this camera was bought, it was actually bundled with a Canon printer, and the printer is a dye sublimation printer, and that was probably the thing that swayed the purchase of this camera. Bundle deal was just under £100, and it just seemed to be a really good deal at the time. So Canon were obviously bundling that in hope that people would print their own photos as well and pay more money back to Canon. So the printer itself would have been greatly reduced, so it could be included in that bundle. Include the printer as well was a pretty decent thing. So just showing you the camera now. I've got the original box here. Let's have a look in the box first. Put the camera to one side. So unused, we've got the AV wires, and there's also a USB cable, which is that kind of common design that we had before the newer design came, and then obviously newer designs after that. So people probably recognise these. Probably got a drawer of those connectors. The other thing it came with is 32 megabyte card. It also came with a battery charger as well, which I don't have in this box. It's situated elsewhere. This is where the camera was bought. So this was Tesco's, and it serves as the guarantee as well, but no problem with the camera. So that's a funny price, isn't it? £99.97, not 99 pence, and it was bought in 2008. It does mention the printer on here actually. So it came with the Zelfie CP520. We've got a quick start guide here as well. Canon information, image gateway. The delivery software for this camera is in CD, and what we've got Canon digital camera manuals and a solution disk. So various bits of software which could be useful. The ones that are most useful are the drivers for you can actually make your prints. What else have we got? It's just telling us everything that came with it. An Italian version of the manual, various other bits and bobs. So yeah, quite wasteful in the day, because you just had tons and tons of paper and manuals and whatnot. So yeah, I think this actually is a good representation of what came with the camera. So you had one battery, a little cover for the battery, the charger. You also had the disc. You had a cable for the charger as well, and yeah, the cables as mentioned. There's a picture there, and European warranty. Another Zelfie printer. That's French, my word. So I think in here as well, because it came in quite a big box, there was a separate box for the printer. Those manuals were in that other box, so I've just shoved everything into the box. So this is the printer that came in the UK with this camera. So it's the Zelfie CP520. Not used it for a while. I've still got quite a few sheets of paper left actually, because I actually there was a time when they were selling off quite cheaply the paper and the little cartridge, which has got the three main colours, which allows it to do its thing. They're quite funky to watch actually, the printers. But this one looks to be a postcard based printer paper, so this would be a P rather than an N on this part of the model for the paper. And there's another receipt. So before we delve into the actual camera, let's have a quick look at the box. Camera is a 7.1 megapixel, the standard 3x optical zoom, UA lens, which is supposed to give enhanced image quality. It's got the Digit 3 processor, and this was actually used in a number of different Canon cameras, and later revisions have arrived. Here we have face detection as well, which I guess some could say is a bit of a fad, but that was something that was introduced here on this camera. What we don't have is a IS, like an image stabilization, an anti-shake, so we don't have that on this camera. We've got a high ISO actually of 1600 as the high end, a reasonable bright screen, 2.5 inch, 16:9 widescreen for some of the pictures. Image inspection tool, scene mode. Now there's I think 7 scenes or so. There's a movie mode, a default 30 frames per second, 640 by 480. So there's the pick bridge and print share, so print options basically, and it does support the first kind of generation, I guess, of the SDHC memory cards, which is great. So you can see why the 32 megabyte card remains in wrap. Now, this camera is a love or hate design, I would say. For me, I like it. Actually, I like this model with the black. So they are copying their older design from their film cameras here. So that's why it probably looks like something you've seen from years before. Got a very powerful flash, and the problem with the flash in terms of taking pictures of people is it's situated very close to the lens, so you will undoubtedly get red eye all the time, but you can use software to get rid of the red eye. So we've got a lamp on the front here, assist, and also we've got a viewfinder. Viewfinder, useful thing to have, but it is so small, and when you hold that up to your eye, it is quite hard to see through. So if you were running out of batteries and you knew you only had enough power for a couple of shots, say, with the screen on, you can actually turn the screen off and just use the viewfinder. So that might give you a little bit more time to take a few more shots before you had to recharge your battery. So it's not particularly rounded, it's very kind of square to look at. There's on and off on the top. The zoom is on there next to the shutter button. We've got on the back the screen, which is nice actually, and I'm surprised it's in reasonable condition still, because it's not, so it's very smooth. It feels like it's seamless in terms of the body here. So this is probably a little bit of a risk. If you were using this camera quite roughly, then you could probably make a nasty scratch or damage the screen. But anyway, it feels quite nice. You've also got your standard sort of buttons on here, as well as the mode layer. You can see that you've got a kind of print share button, and also you can use this to shift the ISO. There is ISO here to switch between modes, and you've got flash, macro, or kind of landscape, the self timer, and then when you're in review mode, you can choose to delete shots. And there's a display here, so that will basically cycle through with more information on the LCD, or turn the LCD off, and you've got your standard menu to get you into all the configurable options there. So interestingly, it's got that little kind of dent look there, which is I guess it's when you're using these buttons, they just thought round it off a little bit, so that's what they've done. So that's not a from me or my wife. Okay, there's the socket, AV and USB, the strap. So a nice compact CCD camera. Now the sensor on this is smaller than it would have been on a Fuji F20, which came out a year before, and that sensor was remarkable because it was a super CCD and it caught quite a lot of detail in low light. Now this camera is still not too bad, and I guess what wins the day here is still only megapixels. So that means that we're not sort of cramming loads and loads of pixels onto the sensor. So when it's capturing light, at least they are of a reasonable size compared to, say, cameras which were quite a bit more in megapixels that came out not long after. Right, let's have a look at the bottom here. It's actually made in Japan, so this is probably one of the later ones that was still being made in Japan, but it really exudes workmanship, decent workmanship. The only thing I would say that's been a little problem, now the catch has been fine in terms of it's held in place, it stays in place, but to keep the battery positioned and in contact with the rest of the kind of contacts inside, so if I just pop that out, there's the battery. We just had to add a little bit of tension, so maybe inside the lid it's not pressing down as much here. So for it to enable contact better, just use a bit of paper, probably from a magazine or something, so that just fits in like that quite nicely, and that means that the camera will always turn on, he says. Okay, there we go. There's an indicator there telling us how many shots are left, and we can turn off the display, as you can see, and just use the viewfinder. The camera's still on. Press it again, you've got no information at all, and there you are with your information. So quite uncluttered, and I would say it's got a pretty reasonable startup time. We're not in the best of light here, but it's managed to take that quite closely. Let's have a look through some of these options. There's a AI AF mode, which is switched off, but this allows it to intelligently focus on nearest objects to you. It's got a digital zoom, which again is turned off. I don't like going beyond the optical on any of these sort of cameras. Red eye is on. That will just flash the flash crazy at you, but probably still get red eye. Self timer. Now there's a mode I think in the self timer to have the standard durations or set your own duration. So if you needed a bit more time to arrange your shot, then you could do a manual setting for your timer. You've got a auto ISO shift, which allows the ISO to be changed during shooting. There's an AF assist beam, which is on. Review, 2 seconds. That's on auto category. Display overlay is off. And then you can customize this button here. Let's go over to this. So yeah, the camera's quiet as I cycle through. So I've turned everything off there. The brightness is down slightly. We could turn it up a little bit. Power saving mode is on. And I think what happens is if you don't use the buttons for a while you're in shooting mode, it will just power the LCD display down, but leave the lens out, so like a standby. It's got the time zone sort of feature, which is common as well on the Panasonic cameras. So I've done a review about a TZ10. The clocked 5 seconds, format options, file numbering, continuous, create folder options, auto rotate. So when you're reviewing your shots, then if the shot is up the other way, so if you took the shot with the camera in a vertical hold, and then you can turn the camera again and see a clearer view rather than have the big kind of chunky black borders. So that's what that is. Lens retract after a minute, so that's energy power saving option. Language is English. Video system set to PAL here in Europe. Print method auto. Reset all. No, I don't think we want to do that. Let's go into here. And then a load of customizable stuff. Themes, startup image, all this sort of thing. So it's all switched off. We don't want any of that gumph. That's the equivalent to having an Android phone that comes with a load of stuff that you don't want, basically. You know, you're kind of advertising the carrier of your, for instance. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. So we don't want that. Turn it all off. That's what I say. Okay, so that's the camera. What I have noticed is, although the megapixel count is higher than on the F20, the Fuji, so that was a 6.3, this is a 7.1, the file sizes are smaller. So the compression, because this doesn't do RAW, not by default anyway, and I'm not sure if this can be programmed, this one, or not. I would have to have a look at that. But what I mean is, can this camera be flashed, and then can it output RAW? I'm not sure. I'll have to check. So yeah, compression is quite strong, I would say, on this camera. So that is one thing to just be slightly wary of. I mean, most shots will look fine, but you will probably see some artifacts in some of your photos. It's a fantastic camera for just keeping in your pocket. As you can see, it's very small. Let's just show you what it looks like compared to this Sony Steady Shot. This is a little wide angle camera, which I've used a little bit on my channel to take videos. It really does make things wide. They're fairly similar actually. Look at that. So a really clean kind of camera in terms of its quality, its output, and the only negatives I can really see when I've Googled about it is some people say that the lens, it does give a bit of purple fringing, and also it is quite a powerful flash, but you do get the kind of red eye effect. I would say it's defense though, the flash is really good, and you will light up half the street sometimes if you're outside in the dark, so and you take pictures. So yeah, for this size of camera, the flash is absolutely powerful enough. Let's go back into there. So just showing you now, when you don't press the menu, you just go straight into the functions. You've got down the bottom the various modes. So there's a little bit of control. I've got it set to auto at the moment. As soon as you set it to manual, then you've got some control here on the left-hand side, exposure, auto white balance, where you're focusing on, etc. So there's a digital macro effect, or scene, portrait, night, snapshot, color, accent. So that just changes things slightly for you, and that takes you the other way. So one is kind of less warm, and one is kind of warmer there. See that? Let's go back in. There's also firework mode. I'm just going to shove it back to auto. I think that sums up the camera really. Anything else that I've missed out or got wrong, or anyone would like to pick me up on in terms of something I've missed perhaps about the camera, please add to the comments. So what it came with is a dye sublimation printer. I can't even say the word, can I? Anyway, there it is. So it's got its own cable in the side, so you can go straight to your camera, which is a nice option. I tended to use this with any picture I took from any camera, so that would mean me having to use it in connection to a PC and then using the Canon software. Now, one thing to mention is this model is quite old, and I've only been using this printer on a Windows 7. So a Windows 7 laptop, which I use for capturing FireWire and for doing my printing. That is fine for using this, so it's a bit of a pain because you have to transfer your photos from one computer over to another, but that does allow me to still use this printer. I've tried it on a Windows 10 and couldn't get the right driver. Now, if anyone knows of a later driver for the other CP machines that might work on Windows 10, then please let me know. That would be really good. I'll just show you where the cassette goes in there. So when they sold the kits for these, I think they were something like 30, was it 36 or 25? Maybe 36 in a pack, and off of one cartridge that would be fine. You might squeeze, you know, one or two extra kind of prints out, but then you'd have to sort of change it over. And I did buy quite a lot actually when they were marked down, I think in Boots at one time, and I was picking up maybe a pack of 100 for something like £7 or something. But no, the kind of price that I've seen online, at least in the UK, is around £25 for 108 pictures. And it's a standard sort of 6x4. I'm breaking it now. That's no good, is it? So it's a nice extra that came with the camera. And you can see you've got the standard USB, which is how you connect to the PC. Got quite a hefty power adapter with this, 24 volts, so probably a little bit more than a lot of laptops need. And then you have a tray that fits in, so you slide your tray in here, and then you'll see the picture kind of be pulled back and forth several times, I think 3 times. So it comes out the back here, and then you'll see it come forward and get the next layer of colour added to it. So there's probably plenty of videos on YouTube to watch about that. If not, I'll make one. And this one as well, it's got a nice kind of blue glow in the centre. So that's the, I think that sums up the short video, which probably isn't very short in the end. And thank you for watching. I'll append some shots at the end of this video so you can have a look and just see what the quality was like. I'll do some more videos in the future. Hopefully I'll do some fixing videos in the future, but things have been a bit hectic here, so just not been able to make the sort of videos that I've wanted to do. But I've got a few projects lined up, so I will try to get on with those in the autumn. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.